All right, JC Taylor. How are you? Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's fun. What is this second podcast?
Second podcast. So we'll see.
I wish I could say it could be the first, but I wanted a little bit extra time. So thanks for having me, Dustin.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a quick introduction,
Sure.
so everyone who sees can watch and know.
Yeah.
JC Taylor, lifelong Kendall County resident and Bernie High School graduate, earned his bachelor's in general business from UTSA. Currently serves as VP of strategy at Texas Star Nut and Food Company. It's a family-owned food production business here in Bernie. It's been around since 2001. You are currently running for Kendall County Commissioner in Precinct 2 and has advanced to the Republican primary runoff coming up May 26th.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's
Sweet.
that's right. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. That's a mouthful right there. That's a lot. So where do you want to start, Dustin? I mean,
This is my second episode. First one, completely different route, different area. And I don't think, for anyone listening, like this podcast is built really to be about all the people, businesses, things in this greater hill country area that I find really interesting. So for me, the idea of like local politics is big, and we don't have to get super big in politics, but I think it's a part of this and that I find interesting. But we go to the voting booth, we go to vote. Local people, I think, make the biggest difference in our lives and like day to day. And I think everyone knows that, but almost everyone knows nothing about anyone local, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, unless someone like really knows them or does a bunch of research. But without like visiting a website or a Facebook page or anything else, I feel like no one.
Right. Yeah, we don't have the debates live on TV
Correct.
or anything else like that, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll definitely get into that. Let me just kind of tell you about who I am, and let's walk before we run here. So,
Sure.
Anyway, yes, I'm a third generation Kendall County resident.
Yep.
So the settlers of my family on my dad's mom's side came into Llano. Nobody calls it Llano. They all say Llano, which I say Llano too. Used to go there for Easter. Great area. Really loved it. They've since passed. Weirdly enough, my mom's dad's side also came in through and settled in Llano. There's no connection there, hopefully. So, and so came in, and a lot of them grew up in San Antonio, right? And then my grandfather, Chuck, as a kid, I used to call him Big Daddy, which sounds funny, but he was like 300-pound big guy.
Sure.
And really involved in the community. He was really big in the walk, the Protestant version of Acts, the walk to Emmaus. And so he was really big behind that. And he got me involved really, I think, at a very young age. I would go over to his house. And this was back when Bill O'Reilly used to be on Fox News before he got in trouble. And I would go over there all the time, and we'd watch the O'Reilly Factor, the No Spin Zone, and all of that stuff. And a lot of the stuff at the time, I was like, I don't know, probably like 12. Like I was really young, I feel like, to be kind of like getting involved in that. But he was really involved in that. He was really involved in the church, and he was really involved in the business. And he kind of, I think, was my first taste of, the business world, the political world, and even into my faith journey, right? And so I was blessed enough to be his oldest grandchild, and he kind of took me under his wing, and we just kind of learned a lot of things, and he taught me a lot of things. And so anyway, that was my dad's dad, and he since passed. And my dad in 2001, along with his help, along with my grandfather's help, started Texas Star Nut and Food Company, which ironically is like 2 blocks from where we're recording this at right now. And at that time, I was just a little kid. In 2001, I would have been, I guess, 12, right? And so we built that facility, and I remember going over there after school, and we were building it, and I was lucky enough to be able to drill the holes through the angle iron that we used to put up as curbs for the forklifts. And I thought that was the coolest thing because I thought that I was like heavily involved. And I think ever since then, I kind of had this real passion and real desire to want to be involved in something bigger than myself, and not to only just be, an employee, but like to really create things and to be able to build things. And the way the story goes is that my dad had a handshake deal with HEB, and they started off with 3 to 5 items, like apricots, dates, walnuts, and almonds, and we put them in the produce department at HEB, which was kind of novel at the time, right? Like, dried fruits and nuts, and the produce department back then, packaged goods, was kind of like an interesting idea. And so from there, we took that concept, and now, or at one point, we had like over 120 SKUs. We've culled it back since then. I think we only have like 20 SKUs now in the produce department at HEB, and that was just kind of the beginning. And from there, we've taken it to a whole nother level. And so that's just kind of a quick shot of like what kind of progress. There's a lot more to that.
Yeah,
and into my journey of why I've gotten involved, not just in business but in the community, and now into politics. So yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning, right? So let's go back to the beginning. You're born and raised here in Kendall County.
Yeah.
Grandfather, your family's here. You grew up in the hill country. What was that like? How, family life? What young age, sports?
Yeah. So, I grew up in Ranger Creek. When I was a little kid, I had the raised car bed there, and then like quickly we moved to Fair Oaks Ranch.
Okay.
There, so I don't really remember living in Ranger Creek. And then in Fair Oaks Ranch, we grew up there. I say grew up until I lived there until the 4th grade. And so we had the neighbors and that kind of dynamic, and built a tree house. And then I fell from the tree house one time, cut my chin like this, and it was kind of a mess. I was the inaugural class to go to Fair Oaks Ranch Elementary, which was really cool at the time. Wow. We got to vote on the Mustang as the school mascot, and I remember that. And then I also remember one time, I don't know, I think this was maybe, I don't know if it was kindergarten, 1st grade, or 2nd grade, one of those. And you'll ask me, how did I win a competition at such a young age? Well, I think my mom did a lot of the peddling of the tissue paper or the wrapping paper, because those things like when you're growing. And so I sold the most wrapping paper, and I got to ride in a limo with Mr. Biggs. John Biggs was the principal of that school at the time, and there was a number of other students, and we took that limousine to the Magic Time Machine. And so and that was kind of like, that was like a big like first mark memory, if you will, back then. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And that's probably another thing that got me really motivated at a young age to be passionate about things and to like do the best that I could possibly do.
Having that like positive event because of your actions that took place. Yeah.
Exactly. And then so from there, in the 5th grade, we moved off of Highway 46 east. You probably like a mile past Ammon, eastbound, and really grew up there for the most part. And we had 16 acres, and then my parents bought some more land that was right next to that parcel. And so ended up having a couple more acres, and, I had 4-wheelers. We had a pond. And so we fished there a lot. And like, I look back on it and I'm like, because I know a lot more now than I knew then. And we used to get in this trough, this like horse trough, and get into the pond. And it was full of, who knows stuff. What? Yeah. And I'm like, man, I don't know how I didn't get amoeba or whatever, because now I freak out about that with my own kids. And I'm like, no, don't get in that water.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then interestingly enough, the grandfather that I was talking to you about moved not too far down, like a couple of houses down, and did all the hunting out there. It's very different. We used to have the Christmas tree lights. I think the Haggies did that at some point, and then a cop got hit or something out there. And like, there's a tremendous. Let me just back up really quick, because I think it's important for people to kind of understand. Like, before Sheriff Hodges became sheriff, he was a police officer in Fair Oaks Ranch. This one time, my little brother got locked in the car, and my mom was really freaking out about how to get him out. And so he came over to the house at that time because he was an officer. He came over to try to help get my brother to understand how to unlock the door. Eventually, he got out. And, you know, it's fascinating because Officer Hodges eventually became the sheriff for Kendall County. And another etched in my memory kind of moment is one time the KKK had come to Kendall County and they were doing this rally. It was really wild. And
when was this?
I don't remember. I was a little kid in the car seat.
Okay.
And so my parents were like, you know, we got to see what these weirdos are all about, you know? And so we drove by and he's there, you know, and he's, you know, managing these people that have the hoods on and everything else like that. And I was like, man, if this guy can be there in that moment and be able to manage the situation and just do his job, like I was like, you know, Sheriff Hodges was like that was a cool moment for me to see in a weird kind of way, if that makes any sense. You know, it's like,
yeah,
because he was
authoritative control under a,
he's a black sheriff.
Yeah.
You know, at this KKK rally and kind of like managing these people. And I'm like, man, that's a real feat to be able to do that. And from my vantage point, to seem
level-headed
about it. I'm sure he probably had different thoughts, you know, I wouldn't know, but like, you know, so I've been involved. I've seen a lot of things in the community in the short amount of time that I've been here. Now, with that said, you know, like I'm only 37 years old. So there's many other things that have happened before my time, before I was even alive, that I've heard stories about, but I didn't get to experience those things firsthand. So just some of those like anecdotal stories were neat to be able to see growing up. So anyway, getting back to where I grew up, and, you know, like I was like heavily involved at the time. We called it BJFL, which was Bernie Junior Football League. And that was kind of my passion as a kid. Right, like that's what I love to do. I love to play football. I played football since I was in like second grade, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And eventually, and then at some point, you know, like I got into this teen phase of my life where I really kind of, not all, but some kids, you know, go down a different path, and maybe it's not the best path, and that's kind of a path that I went down. And you know, anyway, like
I think all teen males take a path down some route they did not expect to go down. So.
Yeah.
They're going to find themselves in precarious situations.
It's a redemptive story. There's obviously I'm sitting here today, so, you know, it all worked out, but I do not recommend it. So anyway, yeah.
No, that's good. So, like born, I mean, right here in all these areas. Myself, I mean, I grew up in Bulverde Spring Branch area, and then like high school wise, I came out, and for me, like Greater Hill Country's home. Always loved Bernie though. It was great. And so when I had the opportunity to actually move here, like 2009, it was like, I couldn't wait to get here. It's been great. And so, you know, I have on here and we kind of joked about it. Like we're going to get into the meat, but for me, we've seen a lot of growth, right? And especially in your life, you actually were born out here and seen in this area. I've seen a lot of growth from a distance. And then even since I've been here since 2009, a lot of growth in the area. And we see online all the time, like Bernie, you know, gone forever.
Yeah.
And Bernie not. Before we get, like, we won't have to get into meat now, but I just want a quick take. What are your thoughts on that? Is it gone forever, or do you welcome the growth?
This episode is brought to you by Bookkeepers. Located right here in Bernie and serving the Hill Country and beyond, Bookkeepers helps businesses with their monthly bookkeeping, payroll management, accounts payable and receivable, financial reporting, and fractional CFO consulting. If your business needs help telling its financial story, reach out to Bookkeepers today. Learn more at bookkeepers.com. That's BKKPRS.com. Now, let's get back into it.
You know, Bernie, you know, in Kendall County, surrounding areas, has been changing since the moment I came here, because technically I was born in Bear County, right? Like at Methodist Hospital, grew up here. But since that time, it's always been changing. at least from my vantage point, right? I mean, so from my standpoint, I don't exactly follow what that, because, I didn't grow up in a time when there was still like horse and buggy, which I'm sure existed here at some point.
Yeah.
There was a train track, right? There used to be
Old number 9.
Yeah, the whole train stuff. That didn't happen, and so that changed before I was even here, right? And I mean, the train track was still here for the longest time. There's no train on it, which I thought would have been really cool if there was, but there's not. Yeah. And so it's always been changing. So I don't exactly know what they've gone forever. Like, gone from what point? What point was it gone from? Like, are we talking like horse and buggy gone, or like train gone, or like the smaller HEB, smaller Walmart, or the time before there wasn't even an HEB, which I wasn't alive for. My dad worked at the Piggly Wiggly or whatever it was called, like off of here in North Main, where I guess this new like auto parts store is.
O'Reilly's or whatever. It's
where La Hacienda used to be.
Yeah.
Where Broken Stone used to be, for people that don't know what La Hacienda was.
Freight.
That's the thing. It's really hard to keep up with. Like, I didn't like it. What time point are we pinpointing here? Like, I mean, it's always kind of been evolving into whatever it is now today, which I've always kind of appreciated what it is, what it has been, what it's going to be. I mean, like, this is my home. This is where we raise our family. All my family lives here for the most part. All my brothers live here. They actually, come to think of it, all live in the county. So I'm the only one that lives in an incorporated area of the county. Mm. My parents live here, and my aunts and uncles. Everybody does. So it's like, I just love it. It's just part of
home.
Yeah, it's my home. We have our business here, and I mean, I guess the thing that one of the things that kind of bugs me with it is because, like, there's fantastic people here, right, that have 100%. Moved here that 100%. Are not like,
natives, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, native, and it's like, I mean, they're fantastic, and so I think one of the things, and this is kind of why I got involved into politics, right, is because, like, we have had change. It's always been kind of something that's happened. I think change is inevitable. It's kind of one of those fundamental philosophical principles that the only constant is change. And so the infrastructure part of that, though, I don't think to an extent has kept up. And so I get a little frustrated when I'm sitting on River Road, when I used to jog from where we used to live off of 46 all the way down to Main Street and back. If you did that today, you'd get killed, right? Yeah. And so
every other day there's an accident on 46, on either side, where it seems like a major accident and something happened. It seems extremely dangerous now.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. Actually, even during the time, so we were coming home from school one day. It was Friday the 13th. I don't remember which month. I just remember it was Friday the 13th because, that's kind of
things that stick in your head.
It sticks in your head. And so, and thankfully, my mom at the time had an excursion, one of those 7.3 diesel excursions. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And so we were pulling into the driveway on 46, and this kid coming home from school rear-ended us, and he was going like 70 miles an hour on an S10 pickup, and like the truck just got obliterated. Yeah. Somehow he just hopped out of the truck like it was no big deal, and so, I mean, it's always been an issue, that 46 kind of corridor right there. And so obviously, when you look at the population from 1990 till today, and it's grown 3 times, and there's been very little done. I mean, we have some passing lanes now on there, but the speed limit is still very high.
Yep.
And as much as I like to drive fast, it's not the safest thing to be doing.
Yep.
On roads that have a lot of neighborhoods that are being built on it, and a lot, pizza joints and batting area, like my kid does the batting practice over there at DBAT and stuff like that. And so, and it's dangerous, and so, like, what has been done, or what is being planned to get done to try to mitigate those risks while continuing to have the quality of life that I'm used to, that a lot of people are used to in the area, right?
Sure.
And so, like, how do you make those things mesh together?
Yep.
In a practical, realistic type of way, right? Because, like, I think the emotional kind of answer to those questions is like, oh, well, you know, we just have to stop people from developing. I'm on the Republican ticket, right? And so fundamentally, for me as a Republican, you know, it's property rights are property rights. You know, if somebody has the right, if somebody owns a piece of property and they have the right to do with what they want on that property, my job, I feel like, as somebody that's willing to govern or wanting to govern, doesn't have the right to be able to tell and infringe on that person's rights. Because at the very basics, at the most fundamental level, I believe in governance. You know, we're protecting life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and property, in my mind. And so, while it may, infringe on your neighbors, what it comes down to, and this is what's really hard for people to kind of grasp, is personal responsibility. Again, you know, being on the Republican ticket, that's one of the core principles or core tenets in my mind of being a Republican, is that I take personal responsibility. And going back to where I grew up at, off of 46 East, that's an unincorporated area of the county, right? I mean, we lived literally off of a state highway.
Yep.
And there are no zoning and planning authority. There isn't a zoning and planning authority out in that area. We didn't live in an HOA, you know, so there's no protection, you know, like if that's what you're looking for.
Sure.
Right. And so the next door neighbor just to the east of us has been saying that they're going to build this storage unit place for the longest time. There's not still any storage buildings there. There's this big moving truck that's been there for a long time. And then next to them, further east, is a cement factory, you know, and an aggregate storage place where you can get, you know, gravel and all sorts of things. And that's a risk you run. Right. When that's a risk my parents ran when they lived there.
Yeah. When you choose to buy and live in a rural area there, that's not going to be managed any other way. Or not going to have someone telling you, like an HOA or anyone else, what can and can't be built.
Right.
And done. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a tremendous amount of personal responsibility
100%
that comes into that. And I grew up there, you know, like this is where I grew up. I take this personally, you know, like I don't like the fact that that's happening. And as a child, I didn't really understand that. Right. Like,
sure.
My parents, though, you know, they sold the house and then they moved out somewhere further, you know, and that's just how they dealt with that issue. And, you know, it's, and I'm empathetic towards the idea of like, well, I want to be able to tell my neighbors what to do. You know, like I understand that from an emotional standpoint. But to an extent, you know, there are options, there are other alternatives, right? Sure. So you can live in an area that has an HOA. You know, these neighborhood, like Cordillera, you know, it's got an HOA. You know, you can't just do whatever. You're not going to build a cement factory in that neighborhood. No, it's not going to happen, right? Because there's rules and there's regulations in that area. There's other neighborhoods that are in the county that have these rules and regulations. But when you live out in the wild, wild west, as I call it, you know,
wild west of Bernie.
Yeah. There becomes a great amount of responsibility, not just from the person that lives there, but from the person that may want to start a business or whatever. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the community, I think, to be able to give back and to be able to manage those resources properly, right? Like, I don't think, you know, somebody should just, you know, be sucking water out of the ground nonstop to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do, because that's a common resource, right, that we all share. And so that's why we have the conservation district, right? I mean, Cow Creek, which was voted on in 2002, you know, to be able to manage some of those natural resources, right? So there are some checks and balances But again, going back to this personal responsibility idea and kind of understanding, okay, well, this is the decision that I'm going to make to live here in this particular area. These are some of the unintended consequences of this decision. And do I really want the government to be involved in, creating more regulation and telling me what I want, what I can and cannot do? Or do I want to be able to make that personal choice and make up my own mind? And if I do want that higher amount of regulation, I can live in an incorporated area or I can live in an HOA area.
Sure.
Right. So it really comes down to those kind of like, in my opinion, more basic, more traditional type of choices, and keeping the government leaned out as much as possible. I think that's a big principle, because it becomes a slippery slope.
Yeah, 100% does.
A very, very slippery slope. More regulation, more this, and then it just piles and piles and piles. And
we get into the same situation we face on the federal side of just massive bureaucracy and oversight and spending and payments and everything else that we don't want in our government. Anyways.
Correct.
And so let's not go down that road from the get-go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Thomas Sowell, famous economist, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs.
Sure.
There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. And so what are we willing to give up to get this other thing? And to really see that all the way through. What are the unintended consequences that we're not looking at right now that we're going to have to pay, that you may not have to pay, but I or my children may have to pay for eventually?
Sure.
Those are the types of things that not everybody always thinks about that, right? And I'm guilty of it myself. I mean, a lot of the times I'm very, I'm all I ever think about is myself. Like I get stuck in that feeling of like I want to be protected. I want somebody else to help me get to where I want to be, like full of the self-interest, without thinking about what does this look like long term.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's human nature, though. I mean,
it's 100%. Yeah.
We're always self-interested creatures, and for ourselves, our family, in this hierarchy, and communities in there, it falls in that hierarchy eventually, but it's going to be my self-interest of what my thought of this community can be or should be versus yours versus, anyone else. And so I'm being able to work through those, but.
Right. And so, it should be no surprise that given the fact that I mentioned Thomas Sowell, like, I'm very, Austrian economics type of driven, very free market, very invisible hand type of individual. And so therefore I think that the free market generally works itself out. And to me, that's generally the solution. The last resort is regulation in my mind. That is,
yeah.
Now, with that said, to be able to manage and corral and to work in a way that's for the best in what the constituents want in the best interest of the constituents, there are ways to do that and to guide some of that growth without having to be totally full of red tape and regulation.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like a one size fits all type of solution. It's what can we compromise on? Again, what can we trade off for this other thing to happen? That's just how my brain works. The idea, I think, so just really let me back up. On the facts of the matter, just looking at the brass tacks, since 1990 until today, I said it was 3 times, which is true, more than 3 times. When you break that down on an annual compounded level of growth, it's 3.5% annually, compounded.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you hear about neck break or explosive, and those are just, that's the population, right? The population of Kendall County since 1990 is 3.5% annually compounded.
Wow. So next year is going to be 3.5% more than this year compounded.
Correct.
going through. So
It's average. It's just an average.
Okay.
I didn't break it down by
Sure.
year, but
Okay.
just in the last 36 years, it comes out to an average of 3.5%.
But the implications are 5 years from now, that growth amount is
It's
substantially more than it is today.
It doubles about every 15 to 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how the math would work on that, I think. But when we think about it, what I'm getting at is, 3.5. What is the alternative to 3.5%? Do we want it zero?
Yeah, no growth.
Right. And what are the implications of zero? Or I don't think we want it 5%.
Right.
You know,
Want it faster,
but 3.5% is that explosive or is that neck break? Because I hear those terms a lot, and I get that it feels like that because it happens in certain areas.
Sure.
Right? It's concentrated to a certain area. Obviously, this is not, and that's a good thing. It's not spread throughout the whole area, because if it was, then
so I-10 corridor right here in Bernie,
right,
close downtown
so it's
area.
by city centers.
Yeah.
Right, and it's generally going to be more south, closer to for now, right? And then you have that kind of but how do you corral that? How do you make it to where it kind of stays in a designated area instead of spreading out at a rapid clip? How do you, and you can see that happening, right? So you take 46 for an example, going back to 46, and you see all the growth that has happened. It's not just the shops that we go to, like the pizza joint or whatever. It's also neighborhoods.
Sure.
Right. And so they're going the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. But I guess going back to like your Austrian economics argument there, and if the free market's going to work itself out in this, given property value rates, you got these legacy landowners who are out there and they're going to make a killing on their property now, right? And you have corporation coming in, they can buy this at cheap in their mind because they know the growth rate that's coming in. They can continue to build. Is that still the Austrian economics just working its way out? And
that's where government come in, right?
Sure. And so what, I guess at some point there needs to maybe be a little bit of red tape, but
right, and you can do that. And so with new roads, which is totally paradoxical, which sounds, I would say, very paradoxical to most people. But if you don't have that area, they're just going to go somewhere else further out into the county, right? Instead of keeping it closer to the town center, right?
Okay.
To like the epicenter. Yep. So how can we corral this closely and make it free flowing? It's like master planning, the area, like instead of going all out and tearing down trees and going further out into the county, how can we manage this and keep it in this area to be able to protect the hill country area of that? Does that make sense?
No, it does. I mean, I think that's a big concern for everyone.
Yeah. So we haven't built a new road. Again, we've had this growth. We haven't built a new road in over 50 years, with the exception of the expansion of HERF. Right.
That was that one little addition that came across.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's that little addition right there. But again, it's happening. It's not going to happen. It is happening. And so how do you corral it into an area that's more manageable?
Sure.
Right. I mean, and again, there is certainly feelings and emotions attached to this.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of sticking our head in the sand and just ignoring the reality here is really going to get us into more of a bind if we don't start taking action and truly managing the way our community looks and feels, right? Because at the end of the day, the state is very property rights driven. They're very growth oriented.
Yep.
Right. And Greg Abbott, I think he said it a couple of times that he doesn't like local governance too much, that he rather just govern from Austin and do what we need, or what he feels that we need to do at the state level, whatever that means. I don't exactly know,
Sure.
but and you look at Corpus, right? You look at Corpus and the water situation there, and Abbott. I've heard him mention several times about this $750 million earmarked money for this desalination plant, and there was no action taken by the local governing body there.
Right.
And again, I think at the end of the day, if the local community doesn't get involved, the state's just going to do it.
Sure.
I think that's the reality. I mean, the state has their objectives at play. And so how do we work with the state and making sure that the state gets what they want and the local community gets what they want, right? Like, how do we work together? It's not the local community versus the state at all, in my opinion. It's how do we work together? And I don't know if anybody is really willing to do that at this point. You know, it's like, I want to do it this way. No, I want to do it this way. Well, how about we
stand still? Nothing happens.
Yeah, right. Like, again, what about some trade-offs here? What are the compromises? How are we going to compromise?
Sure.
On these very important topics that I think, again, there's a lot of emotion, a lot of passion involved in these things.
Oh,
So,
I mean, rightfully so on both sides, and needs to be. Well, I want to come back to that because we'll come back to this later because I'm curious to get what your solutions are, what you think the solution is to those. Let's go back though. So you grew up here. These are the areas, and so what we're talking about are the roads you grew up on and where you're from, right? So very well real to you and your family. Family business here.
yes,
It started 2001 is what we show here. So
2000.
how did y'all get into that world? Walk me through that.
So my grandfather bought a pecan processing plant, I believe from Mr. Church, like Church's Fried Chicken, Mr. Church,
Oh wow. Okay.
in San Antonio. And it was really, like, I've only driven by, but it was kind of over there by the jail house in Bear County.
Okay.
So not the best part of town.
Sure.
And I've heard a lot of stories. I've heard a lot of stories about this. Anyway, so he ran that operation. John, my dad, worked there, and then my grandfather had sold that to John B. Sanfilippo and Sons. It's a big, publicly traded company. They have like Fisher Brand, Orchard Valley Harvest. People may or may not know what that is. And so my dad did contract brokering for them. He was an independent broker, but contracted with this company, John B. Sanfilippo and Sons. And he was really in charge of the Walmart account for the most part. He had some other ancillary type of businesses, but really managed that piece of the business. So it traveled a lot as I was growing up to Northwest Arkansas and called on Walmart. And then I remember this very vividly. We were driving down to the coast. This must have been in 1999 or in 2000. Again, I'm 10 or 11 at this time, but remembering these things like it was yesterday, and I'm so thankful for those things because we were driving down the coast and my dad gets a call and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I've just been terminated. They terminated my contract. So I'm no longer going to be brokering for the old company, for John B. Sanfilippo and Sons. And so, somehow, I don't know how this all unfolded between my dad and my grandfather, but they came down the street here. This business park was developed, I think in the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, and it was kind of empty for a long time. And so we bought this piece of property and built the plant, and kind of the rest for Texas Star Nut and Food is history. And, today, it's just been, it's crazy to look back on it because it was a couple $1 million in revenue at the very beginning. And just to kind of summarize where the whole company is today, we do over $130 million in annual revenue. And that doesn't come without a tremendous amount of challenges, right?
100%.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of challenges involved in getting there. I think one of the things that we've been able to do really right is have great relations. So we're in between the grower and the retailer.
Okay.
So
you're going to the farms, you're buying from these farms,
right.
and they harvest, they do, you buy it, you then process and sell to
Yeah.
HEB, Walmart's,
Yeah.
whatnot.
You want to talk about a lot of water usage? We'll talk about farms, but
Yeah.
that's a whole that relates back to here. You want to talk about a lot of water. These guys use a lot
Sure.
of water.
Yeah.
And so, we go over there in California, Mexico, all over the world, Thailand, China. We buy pine nuts from China. They're really Russian, I think, and then they're dehusked or depined or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
In China. And I think going back to one of our key competitive advantages, which isn't really a secret, but it's just our ability to have relations with these people, right? All very different types of people. We treat them right. We're committed in our contract-based business, regardless of what the commodity market may do. I mean, there's opportunities where we've been on the wrong side of commodities and still have honored taking our contracts. We've been on the right side where we could have just sold off and had windfalls and stuff like this. But we remain committed to the long-term goal of not just to the farmer, but also to making sure that the retailer is kept in stock on time and in full. And a lot of our business is commodity-based. I would say probably 90% of it is commodity-based. The other 10% is value add. And that's been a lot of, so on the value add side of things, we have our branded business of different kind of baking mixes and things like this that are alternatives to like the Betty Crocker stuff that you may see.
Okay.
And then we're just launching this new item. It's called nachos. I say just launching. It's been a
work in progress for a while.
We have a massive a chip line now at the plant. So we take almond flour, and defatted almond flour, which is obviously all the fat has been taken out, so it's just very high in protein, and a couple of other natural like cassava flour and other things and I think coconut maybe, that we create this dough with. We send it through the sheeter, and now we're making a tortilla-style almond chip.
Okay.
And that's hence the name Nachos. And so we just got that into Walmart, which is very exciting. And, it's funny because people are like, Walmart's like one of those businesses, it's like, I never eat at McDonald's, but they sell the most hamburgers in the world, and
Sure.
Walmart just so happens to be now the number 2 largest company in terms of revenue in the world, right? Amazon just took that spot. It's the race to $1 trillion with these guys.
Right. Yeah.
And from a business standpoint, and being able to see these guys turn that much product is, if you're into business, right, is the most fascinating type of operation these guys can put together, and the automation behind it and the level of customer service and support. People like, we don't shop at Walmart, we shop at HEB, which I get that makes sense to me here, but
sure.
Walmart is still the largest grocer in the United States in terms of market share. And I've been blessed enough to be able to go to Northwest Arkansas a number of times now, and Bentonville, and I've seen them go from this like very not very nice kind of facility for their corporate office to this very nice kind of corporate office. And I wasn't working at the time. Like, I was too young when Sam Walton was there and stuff, but I've heard many stories about people that got to meet him and what kind of guy he was. And seeing how that company has transformed to where it is today and the nice new office is totally different. But with that said, I mean, it's still a great company to work with. They're very difficult to work with. And then now you have people like Amazon, which is a key account for us. And they have actually just taken over as the largest company in the world in terms of revenue. And the automation and the operations that these guys run is top notch. Costco is another fantastic operator. HEB's fantastic operator.
Yeah.
You know, again, from the business standpoint and seeing what these guys do, it's just fascinating. So
are they, these larger brands are corporations, right? So HEB, we're all familiar with Walmart, we are, but are they selling your products only here locally in Texas area, regionally on those, or are they your products there with Texas Star and Nut are going all over?
it's all over. So in Walmart, we used to be, we still may be, I'm not sure, I don't remember, the largest brand of almond flour in the United States. So in Texas Stars, that's our corporate name.
That's the corporate, right? So you got
Nature's
subsidiaries.
Yeah, Nature's Eats is kind of like the brand for the nuts and the nut flour, and then like I said, Nachos, and we have Baking Genius. We have a number of different ancillary kind of brands that we launch out. Some are successful, some are not. But yeah, no, we're nationwide.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we have this new brand. It's called Find, which I think is, you know, a long story behind how that all came to fruition. Because we work for, TJ Maxx. You know TJ Maxx?
Yeah.
Also a fantastic operator. Check out their stock. They do
A lot of SKUs. I don't know how they manage that.
well, you know, it's interesting because the clientele on the base
Right.
is very loyal to them, and you go there and the lines are out the door, and you go there and it's like a treasure hunt. You know, it's like,
Right. The whole philosophy of that in the home good store, whatever it is,
Home Goods, same company.
same
Yeah.
thing, right? So they're like
Yeah.
they're connected, and they like that whole. It's a way different way of shopping. Than
fantastic buyers.
But yeah,
Some of the best buyers ever. I mean, wow, like that's the only PO I've ever got that was handwritten, like on a piece of paper. They tore it out. Like we met in Austin at this hotel. They were in town. They wrote it down on the paper and they gave me this order slip like this. Very kind of
Just nonchalant, kind of simple,
yeah, but like it was just like it's.
instant.
And then since then, you know, they've been to the office, and I mean, we meet the whole day, going through all the items, and they go through all the pricing, and it's like a massive test. And the computers, this is all real time, you know, going on. You know, like this is their whole MO is to create the maximum amount of value for her. It's kind of what they call their clientele, her. You know, I don't, which
Interesting. Yeah.
which makes sense. I mean, they get really passionate about this stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so to be working with those types of people is really kind of interesting. I mean, it's a whole different type of mindset.
How are those relationships fostered now? I mean, you talked about like going back to your father. I guess he was brokeraging this stuff with other large corporation that was bought out, and now, I mean, so you would think there's gonna be some relationships that were established back then, but now you got these new ones. I mean, is it reputation that's bringing these people in the door, and then you're able to foster it there, or how?
It's a continuation. It's both, and then there's also some mix of innovation,
Okay.
not just on the product side of things, but also on the automation and operation side of things, right? So it's always evolving, and it's not as we have to make sure that we're being efficient and effective at the plant.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, we're not making a bag in 10 minutes. You know, we make 60 bags in a minute.
Yeah.
So it's how automated, how quickly can we get this stuff out, and how right is it? I mean, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
In the commodity business, in the commodity space, the margins are very thin, right? And a lot of that is done on the buy. So
On the farmer side.
on the relations with the farmers.
Yeah.
Right. But then any other little thing that you can squeeze out is done operationally.
Yeah.
And so the retailers are interested in our level of expertise in operations.
That's great.
Yeah. And so, we're always evolving in, okay, what kind of machinery do we need to be able to do this type of business the most efficient way possible?
Yeah.
And what does that cost look like? What's the payback? Is it worth doing? I mean, sometimes we have these conversations with some of these. This is not in our wheelhouse. I mean, we've gotten to that point where it's not that we pick and choose with every retailer. The close ones will make it work. We'll do whatever it takes to figure it out. But sometimes we'll have retailers come to us that it's not necessarily in our wheelhouse, and the capital expenditures to make it work, the payback isn't large enough to justify the capital expenditure expense.
How's the AI impacted y'all?
So a lot of it, and it's fun because I listen to the All In podcast. I don't know. I like those guys a lot. The AI side of things hasn't. So a lot of our SaaS type software is built into a very specific product flow, if you will. So if we're using EDI, like electronic data interchange,
okay,
that's already those are plug and play type of systems. And so we rely on the tech side of those companies to implement the AI to wherever they see fit. AI for us hasn't been hugely it's been more beneficial actually on the sell side than it has on the operations side.
I can see that. Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It does.
So, yeah.
I'm blown away with it. Claude right now for me, it's incredible. We find more use case every day and operations on it. It's insane what it can do.
Right.
And so from your sales side, you're managing, tracking, creative, all of that. Vastly, I imagine, can impact y'all on that. I'm curious, but even like on efficiency on the back end, I don't know if y'all are running analytics and data through it or doing anything on your side.
We do, but it's all higher level. It's not really directly involved in the machinery, or a lot of the roasting and the salting and the processing is already built into the equipment itself, and it's very detail oriented already as it is. And then we have to follow a very strict process to make sure that, for instance, like if we're pasteurizing, we're dialed in there to time, temp, to be able to kill the pathogens that may or may not be present on any of the product that comes through the plant.
And are y'all doing that here in Bernie, or y'all got?
That plant is actually kind of closer to Fair Oaks Parkway.
Okay.
Yes, they're Horizon Foods. There used to be this company, Horizon Foods. We bought that building, and then we put in our pasteurization equipment over there because we don't want to bring dirty product into the plant here, right? So we bring it there to that plant,
get it pasteurized,
clean it,
yep,
and then we bring it over to our plant
over out here on the north side of town, and then process through from there. So y'all are, your whole operation then is taking place in Bernie.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
From
except for the growing, right?
Except for growing, right? You source it out, you get it here, and then it's packaged, distributed out back to these other large providers straight out of Bernie here.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea that was there and y'all were doing that. That's great.
Yeah. I think that's just kind of like a trade,
Sure.
I'm probably more vocal than most of the family, and those things. It's just we kind of keep quiet.
Do y'all sell direct at all to retail, or is like
to
do your
we used to
website or anything like that? Y'all
we used to,
No.
And then direct to consumer, as they call it, is not our forte. We allow Amazon handles that for us,
Sure.
right? They can do it much more. We stick to what we know,
sure,
right? And I think that's a big success factor for us. We don't try to be a jack of all trades. We've done the whole direct-to-consumer thing, and we're not set up to be the best of the best when it comes to direct-to-consumer.
Yeah. So family business.
Yeah, it's funny.
How's that? I know there could be tons of pros and there can be cons too, and its own unique challenges. I mean, how's that?
We were talking, earlier before this started, and yeah, I think I mentioned everything is political.
Yeah.
Everything is political.
Yeah.
And that is very true with a family business and the dynamics there. I don't think, and it's hard to talk about those dynamics if you haven't experienced them, right? You could probably imagine, but I come from a family of very motivated, highly passionate individuals that all have their own free will, their own thought, and we come together and we're trying to work on solving some kind of problem or to increase our revenue or to increase our market share. And generally we'll have, we could have 5 to 10 people in that room and we're going to have 5 or 10 different answers.
Yep.
Right. And being family, like I get the impression sometimes that like my brothers or, my great aunt, she's not involved as much anymore. And I absolutely love her. She's fantastic. They could be like, what's the motive here behind it? Like, is it for the best interest of the company or is it just because they want the notch on the belt? And it's really no different, right, than the corporate world outside of family business, right? I mean, like,
you just don't have to go home to these people.
Right.
World. Yeah.
It's, it gets a little bit more personal, right? But at the end of the day, we've had some knockdown, drag out type of situations where it's just like we really cannot see eye to eye. Take a break, we come back though, and it all worked out so far. And I have 3 younger brothers that all work there, and I have cousins, aunts, uncles, but as bad as it may sound, I think it's to our benefit to have those people there because they are truly invested in the company, right? I mean, like they're not just an employee. I don't think that you can be that successful with that type of employee base, right? I mean, you want to have people that are truly invested, and what better way to be truly invested than to have family there working?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'd imagine that as a family, it's the pride of that, like this is our family business, and you all have that same end destination of success and growth, and so you're all like rowing the same direction. You just may want to choose different paddles on how you want to get there, right? So
exactly, yeah, which is fine.
Yeah,
because then if it was just you or whoever, then you're in an echo chamber.
Yeah,
and so it's like it's a great way to be able to put the ego aside and be like, okay, let me really, really try to objectively listen to what this other family member, person, employee has to say and think about what is the good here? What does make sense? Because that's the real challenge. I think that's the challenge in going back to the politics. It's always like, how can I best put my ego aside and how can I contribute to this problem instead of being part of the problem?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and we can get
That's hard for a lot of people.
It's extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I used to be stuck in that mentality, and we can go off into that, like, into kind of more of my personal journey on how I've kind of like gotten to where I think differently about things.
Yeah.
And so, how I told you about the fork in the road and like how I kind of, I wish that I could say that I graduated at the top of my class, but I actually graduated in the bottom quarter of my class at Bernie. And a lot of that had to do with bad decisions, right? Like specifically around, I drank, and, I did other things that I shouldn't have been doing. And it inevitably led me down a path where, I had to get involved into AA, and so, and like we mentioned before, I am generally pretty anonymous about my AA journey.
Sure.
But getting into politics, people,
There's some more exposure there.
Yeah, they want to know, and it's fine. I haven't had an ice cold beer or a piss warm beer for that matter, because since January 20th of 2017, and
awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, that's, a lot of people, and like we talked about before, a lot of people would think that was the worst day of my life. And in fact, I mean, it was a pretty bad day. Don't get me wrong about it. But it was also a very good day in the sense that if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Right.
Sure.
Like the understanding of that, I feel a certain way. And so I want to change the way I feel. And I use alcohol or whatever to do that instead of dealing with life on life's terms, as we call it, in the program. And it's like that gift of whatever it is that AA has given me that I couldn't really bottle it up and tell you and sell it to you. It's just this thing, this kind of magical thing that happens that we all have this common desire to not want to be drinking anymore. And to be in a room with people that have been humbled in their life enough to be able to share their experience, strength, and hope, and how they've been able to manage and live life on life's terms is really kind of a very special place. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact of what we're talking about in business, right? It's like, how do I set my ego aside that this is not all about me? There's a lot of other stakeholders. There's a lot of other people involved in this. What can I give up? What can I trade off to be able to allow other people to come in and do things that they may see as a good path forward that I don't clearly see at the time, And so that's a learned trait for me. That's been a learned trait, and I think I learned it in the best way possible by kind of that experience and that struggle in my alcoholic journey and being able to get to getting to where I am today. So, I don't, for the sake of anonymity, don't really like to talk too much other about it because like there's people in those rooms that have changed my life. They've changed the way that I've thought about life, and I want to be respectful of that anonymity again in the program. But all I can say is that like if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't be where I'm at, and so it's really changed kind of the way I've thought about things.
I mean, those programs are, I think there may be mixed opinions on who you ask at certain times and whatever, but in general, I think are fantastic. I mean, for anyone that's dealing with addiction and the disease of what it could be and the harm it has is incredible. And to have a community and that support guideline there of people, it's incredible. Like you got to have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea of getting down in the hole with somebody that's in a hole, right? And not just telling them how you got up, but showing them, right? Like you jump down in the hole, and this is how I got out of the hole. Follow me up, and I'll show you how I got out. And I think that's the idea of, spirituality at its very core essence. I make the joke, only in AA can people of different religious backgrounds, and I'm talking about very different religious backgrounds, only in AA can those people for 1 hour get along with no problems whatsoever. And I've seen it happen, and there's something really special that goes on in there that I wish other people could experience. And it does show its face, obviously, through my faith life, right, today. But just to back up a little bit, to your point, there's a lot of people that are like, alcohol is not an issue. And I agree, it's a thinking problem, right? I mean, like, it's a real distortion of reality, I would call it, and like, what I've had to really get over is not thinking about myself and thinking a lot more about other people, right? Like, and if I were to think about myself too much, inevitably I'm going to want to drink or something like that, And there's been a number of times since being sober that I've been tested with those trials and tribulations of life coming at me. And my default instinct is to want to feel sorry for myself. And I think that's a trait that a lot of people share to like just fundamentally, philosophically, whatever. And instead of looking at the world in terms of all the things that I have to do. Instead, it's all of the things that I get to do, right? And so there are no problems. There's only opportunities. You know, today for me, there are no problems. There are only opportunities.
Yeah.
And that is truly just a mindset, and it's a gift that I've got from AA.
I mean, it's a great way to think about that.
Yeah.
Not worrying about things you got to do, but the things you get to do, right?
Yeah. You can wake up. I know I'm going to have a bad day when I wake up with a mindset of I gotta.
Sure.
Instead of I get to.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not perfect every day. Like some days I'm still feeling sorry for myself, you know, like, especially getting into politics, you know, like I hear every opinion and every thought, and, you know, you get questioned and beat up and all of these things. And then I'm like, dang, you know, I feel a little down, you know, and it's like, so, you know, again, it's just kind of, it's always looking at the opportunities, right? Like, what are the opportunities? There are no problems. There are only opportunities. Like, and I've had some things that have happened in my life that since being sober that I thought were major problems. And I'll tell you that if I had thought about those things as problems and I kept my mind locked in with thinking that way about this being a problem, that I would be stuck in a different world. One of those experiences that I want to share, because my whole goal is always to be able to be somebody that somebody can reach out to. That's my main priority, right? Like God, family, and service, right? And so, you know, those things, if there's somebody that comes to me and they feel like they have a drinking problem, like that's what I do. That's like, again, let me show you how I got out of this hole.
Yeah.
You know, and that's any time of the day. You know, I have people call me up all the time and they're like, hey, I have this. And a lot of it's like, I can't help because you're not the guy. Like, you're telling me about a family issue that this person is clearly not ready. Like, they have not conceded. They're still wrestling around with God, you know, which inevitably is kind of what the disease is. You know, it's like, I'm wrestling around with this idea. Anyway, the other thing that I tell you, and I tell you this, you know, to also be a beacon kind of for support for others, because this is the way that my wife and I got through it, is that my wife and I, we had 4 children, and one of our daughters had passed from sepsis, and I was sober, and you know, life was going well. So, and you know, and you look at that situation, and I looked at it at the time, and thank God for my wife, because you know, the first thing for her is like, okay, we got to go to the church, and we got to talk to the priest, and we got to see what we need to do. And that's the kind of guidance that I needed, and that we both needed, right, at that time. And, you know, quickly we got involved with a couple at our parish that had really helped and walked us through that time of our life. And one of the things that the husband had said was that the life is for the living. And at the moment, it hit me kind of wrong. I was like, because, you know, I was stuck in this idea that and I had no control of, right? Like that I don't get to bring Lucy back, you know, from the dead. Like I don't get to do that. That's not something I can control, you know, and there's so many things in life, obvious, that I found out that I cannot control. And so how do I turn this into this opportunity to be able to get deeper into my faith, right? Which sounds very kind of like, well, how can you turn that? There is no other option, right? Like the option is that I'm going to go down and live in this dark hole, or I'm going to come out of this and see the hope in this situation, right? Which is very difficult to do. And I couldn't have done it without, you know, certain people in my life. And I think that was kind of a coming to a moment for me. And then ever since then, you know, like the family has been very involved, a lot more involved kind of in this faith journey. And it's nothing that I claim to know, you know, like I have no idea. Like I still wrestle around with this concept of God, and Jesus and all of these things. Like, I'm not, but for me, I think that's a great thing. I mean, like, that's kind of the whole thing, is like wrestling with this idea, wrestling around with God has really developed my relationship with God. It's like, but I can tell you that the idea of like the why me, why did this happen to me did not work for us. Like,
it wasn't going to get you anywhere.
It wasn't. And I've seen the people that have stayed down in that hole, and I don't believe that's where, God wants us to be, And, I hate to, it's even weird for me to talk about because it's not something that I can articulate, right? Like, it's something that I've just, done day in and day out, and have given up my life like this idea that I can control all of these things, to this idea of this higher power, which I do call God, and which, I do believe in Jesus, and I do, I pray the rosary. So a lot of people probably don't agree with that, but, like, those are the kind of the basic tenets in my life. And it's ironic, right? And, go to reconciliation and all these things. It's ironic because AA ultimately brought me back to all that stuff. It's like one of the steps in AA is like, you go through this whole litany of all of these shortcomings that you've had in your life, and then you go tell another human being and God. And I was like, oh, well, this sounds like confession to me. And so like all of these things, God is always this higher power, God, whatever it is that people want to call it, has always been present in my life. And there's this famous quote, and this was true for me, right? Dr. Carl Jung, I think, said, a lot of people don't see God because they don't look low enough, or they don't find God because they don't look low enough. And for me, that was very true in my life. Like, I got beat down and and it's not even a beating down. It's just kind of like, it's just life. Like, these things have happened in life, and it's the decision to be able to turn my will over to God as I understand him, instead of just, pretending that everything is okay, because everything is not always okay. But if I continue to practice these principles, this too shall pass, and I think that's an extremely hard concept to grasp, and it's ungraspable. I cannot grasp it unless I do it myself, and that's kind of been the story of how things have happened. But I just told you a lot of stuff there. So
No, you're good. You're good. That's deep. I mean, really painting a big picture of who you are, your unique challenges, life, and what drives you. I mean, to where you are today. And I mean, that's a lot to go through.
I share these things because I want people to know who it is that I am.
Sure.
Right. And that I am not infallible. Like, I don't have all the answers, but
none of us do, and none of us are, right?
Yeah. But every single day, I'm striving to seek those answers. Sure. Some days are better than others, I must admit. Like, the other day I got, pretty tilted about this one comment, like,
why read the comments?
Yeah. Why even go down that path? And, there's always something that's, and for me, it's not like an invisible kind of, or it's not like the devil that I used to think of. For me, it's simply my ego, right? It's like, I read this comment, what difference does it make? And it's only because of my ego that I think that this is important to me.
Yeah.
But is this truly important? Does this really affect my life? Like, generally not.
Yeah.
And so I have to stay grounded, and I have to be, fully transparent about who it is that I believe that I am, at least today, and where I've come from, and all of these challenges that have brought me to this point that I am at today. And none of it I take lightly. It's the gift of life is sometimes very intense. Sometimes it just depends. It's like, there's a season for everything. There's a season, there's a time, and not my words, but
yeah.
but and Yeah, I mean, yeah, life can feel, I think, to some degree a little monotonous at times. But one of the things that I think is truly beneficial is like if we continue to stick with it, like there's something else on the other side. But Dustin, what else do you have politically for me?
Politically,
It's all political.
it is like we talked about it. It's all gonna be political. No, I mean I think this is fascinating. I mean, story, local person, your life and challenges, where you're at. You're working this family business, obviously very busy there. You got your kids and life, and that's very busy. And now you want to go politics. All right. So why? Like what? Why would you do that to yourself? And what is it just the mechanism of wanting to serve and
Well, I think
is that like instinctually for you or what is that?
I think one of the things that I've just seen from the outside looking in, right, is the reality that things are changing, have always been changing, and will always continue to change. And I've seen a lot of a lack of an action around that change from the governing body, right? Particularly at the county level.
Yeah.
I think there was a time and a place where there didn't have to be a lot of involvement, right? I mean, it was a commuter town, small, not a lot of things going on, but the secret's out.
Sure.
Right? The secret is out. And so what are we going to do around infrastructure? What are some of the ideas that we're going to put into action to be able to maintain our high quality of life?
Yeah.
Right. So I'll just start with water.
Sure.
A lot of people get really emotional. They get really passionate about water. And so I think the city of Bernie, which is roughly 48% of the population of the county, uses about 3,500 acre feet of water. And when you get to a level of water, you measure it in acre feet, right?
So one acre, 1 foot deep.
Correct.
Okay.
By 3,500 acres.
About 3,500 of them. Okay.
Yeah. So just to put, because
that's an annualized?
Annualized. Yeah.
That's surprisingly low.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I think
right.
I'm surprised it's that low.
Right. So going back to the farm thing, right? I mean, we went out to this ranch in San Saba, and there's a couple thousand acres. There's 50,000 trees, pecan trees. And this particular ranch, had 5,500 acre feet of water rights out of the Colorado. They would use about half of that water for the 50,000 trees annually. To put it in perspective, to kind of give you an idea. So most of the water usage is for industrial purposes.
Here in Bernie.
No, I'm just saying generally.
In general.
In general.
Yeah, city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Municipal water use is relatively small when you look at it compared to farming, which I hear a lot of people, like sheep or cattle, all those things take up a lot of water.
Yeah.
Right? I just say this to kind of put water into perspective.
Sure.
Right? So, and in 1972, around there is when the Cibolo was impounded, and that created Bernie Lake.
Okay.
Right? And in 1964, Canyon Lake was impounded. The Guadalupe River was impounded there to form Canyon Lake. You look back, I don't know, it's 50-something years, 60 years in Canyon Lake time, 62 years for Canyon Lake. And we've talked about the growth, right? Yet we haven't built any new reservoirs.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and those are man-made, right? Yeah. Like those lakes are man-made. Yeah. That's not...
Prior generations made that call to, hey, we need to start reserving some water here.
Correct. Yeah, and so I think, a lot of it is fundamental, right? And so a lot of it's just critical thinking. And so, okay, we've had this population growth. We've relied on these reservoirs, these man-made reservoirs. We've had this population growth. What are we doing now?
Yeah.
So in my mind...
They're not getting bigger.
Right. They're not going to get bigger. we're going to use more water out of those reservoirs without putting anything back in it, just based off of population growth. Surely based off of population growth.
So do you think we should create more reservoirs?
Correct. So that's one option around water. And so it's like, okay, where? Okay, well, Joshua Creek, and these are just ideas. I'm not locked into any of these ideas. I don't pretend to know, like I said earlier, to know exactly what it is that we ought to be doing. But I feel like these are probably some pretty good solutions that we should at least investigate.
Sure.
Right? So can we have another reservoir?
Have there been any studies done or anything that you're aware of?
Not to my knowledge.
Recent. Wow.
So, let me just give you a history. So I told you about the reservoirs when those were impounded, the reservoirs that we use in this area. And then, or at least to my knowledge, we may pull water from another reservoir that I'm unaware of. Cow Creek was voted and ratified in 2002. That district conservation of groundwater, right, is their mission. So how do we conserve? How do we manage and protect the natural resources, that of which is groundwater?
Okay.
In 2002. In 2011, I think, is when we started, or when the city of Bernie started, and maybe the city of Fair Oaks started buying water from GBRA, which is Canyon Lake, Guadalupe Blanco River Authority, right? And so we pump water in. The city of Fair Oaks buys water from Canyon Lake. City of Bernie buys water from Canyon Lake. That started in about 2011. To my knowledge, I don't know of anything that's been done at the local level in Kendall County around water infrastructure. Now, like the city of Fair Oaks, the city of Bernie, I think they've done some ancillary work around infrastructure and managing the resources that they're pulling from. I think the city of Bernie is putting in a new water filtration plant for the lake out there to make sure it doesn't taste bad. But like since 2011,
but that doesn't increase supply.
Right. But since 2011, again with the piping of water from Canyon Lake, I don't know of anything that has been done directly to resolve this issue of, hey, we have more people moving in here. Where are we going to get water from?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's all of this is why I got involved. Right. So reservoir, that's one option. Right. Another option in my mind, which is this depends on how severe of the issue, because it's very expensive. It would be very expensive to do this, but it's done in other counties, is to have a water utility district. So it's essentially the county would be involved in supplying water to residents and or businesses and or industry. And so that way, you get the water from a source. Maybe it's groundwater. Maybe it's in partnership with the city of Bernie from the lake or wherever the water may come from, which is critical, to be able to find out that. Right now, I believe that there's a statute in place where saws can't directly sell outside of Bexar County. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that could, if there was something that we could do working again with the state to be able to.
Saws pulls from the Edwards, right?
Correct. Well, yes. And I think other areas.
Okay.
So I think saws at the now drill so deep in some areas, and I don't exactly know where. I'm not an expert on the Edwards aquifer and that authority there, but I believe they're drilling so deep that they pull some brackish water from some area, and so they're desaling some of that water to be able to supplement the water usage that they have going on, right? So so option 2 would be a water utility district. So we get the water, either groundwater. But at any rate, if you had this water utility district, you could more effectively manage the water. You would understand how much water is being pulled, where that water is going, where it's coming from, and perhaps even put regulation to suffice some of this complications between the Bernie gone forever and the reality that we are going to grow. And so how can we do that in the most managed way possible? If you did have a water utility district, you could dictate in theory where that water and how much water is being used. And also you're charging for it, right? So one of the ways to manage in a roundabout way is to make water more expensive.
Yeah.
Right. So again, like economics, like the economics of the situation.
Sure.
So you throttle growth by making water more expensive.
Do you think that would have a meaningful impact on growth?
Likely.
I mean, because you got to think we are one of not the, but one of the wealthiest parts of the state, and definitely in the hill country and in that area, and it's water bill is not going to concern a lot of people moving out here and growth for the most part.
Correct. But it could be a deterrent, right? I mean, to some.
Sure.
But again, like sticking with my principles
Sure.
of the free market type, like I have to have some kind of base.
Sure.
Always. And that is my base. My base is that for the most part, I'm a free market individual.
Yeah.
Republican type guy, like, and personal responsibility. All of those things are my basic tenets.
Yeah.
I don't want to stray too far away from that. I don't want to say this thing and then do something completely different. I feel like that's what a lot of politicians do. And I get the reason. It's to placate and to make everybody like you. And I understand that's not this job.
But doing nothing is also an issue.
Right. Doing nothing is a choice. Doing nothing is doing something. It is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Which I understand that philosophy, right? Like, okay, well, if we don't do anything, maybe
it'll work itself out.
It'll all work out.
Yeah, if it'll just rain.
Yeah, if it'll just rain. But people get upset. I mean, and these people are paying tax dollars.
Yeah.
And so they want solutions, right? And so these are some practical solutions. The third one, which it's weird to me that it's not already implemented, but is a tax abatement for rain harvesting, which is relatively low impact. I understand.
Yeah.
But give residents a reason to want to conserve.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
at least for, agricultural uses or water in their yard, their gardens, whatever it may be.
Right.
Just to help a little bit offload on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Take some of the burden off.
Yeah.
On that. And the most extreme option that I don't think we're close to yet, but I think this is where there are some cities in some areas in Texas that will experience this, that are experiencing this, like Corpus, but it's desalination, right? And if you wanted to fill up reservoirs that are running empty because of the draw on those reservoirs, you would fill them up with desalinated salt water, which is obviously very expensive. Part of the issue that this is hard for a lot of people to understand is that water is relatively it's obviously not nationalized because it's not done by the federal government, but it is nationalized at a local level, if that makes any sense. So in other words, you don't have a lot of options as a consumer on where you get your water from.
Right. You can have well.
Right.
Or you get it piped in from the city.
Right. Right. So again, if this was a free market situation, and if the problem was large enough, it would be solved, I believe. And it's very similar to the way we run oil in this country. We don't nationalize oil like Mexico does, like Argentina does, which causes a tremendous amount of issues, right? At a macro level, eventually all that stuff comes.
Sure.
It's communistic. I mean, essentially. I mean, you go down to Mexico, there's only one gas station.
Yeah.
It's called Pemex,
Yeah.
which is ran by the federal government of Mexico. I mean, it is socialized.
Yeah.
And there's a reason we don't socialize gas and oil in this country. But yet we still do it. And there are private water companies, don't get me wrong. But it's a double-edged sword, Dustin.
Yeah.
Because if you solve the water problem, then you're going to allow more development. Do you understand?
Sure. No, yeah. Yeah, I didn't think about
It
that.
is very
Yeah.
complicated. This is a chess game.
Yeah.
And I love chess. I'm not very good at chess, but I love chess. And you have to think through these things very critically.
Yeah.
If I move this piece, what does that mean for the rest of the board? How
Yeah.
does this all play out? This is what I'm saying. I mean, it is not, this job to me is not writing, it's not showboating and being on the Facebook and all of these things and look at me, it's not that to me. This job is an important job. It really will dictate the future of
For
our
our children,
community.
grandchildren.
Correct.
Yeah.
right. And so I don't like listening in platitudes. I've heard a lot of hand wringing about water. Water is important, obviously. There's water right here.
Yeah.
I took a shower this morning. I use water. I mean, we all use water. It's the essence of life.
Yeah. We
Right?
gotta have it.
Got it. But what are we going to do about it going forward?
Yep.
Right? And I have yet to really hear really strong solutions based around this topic.
Sure.
So all of these things, what I'm telling you, this is why I've decided to get involved, because here are some potential options. Let's sit around in the room, talk them through, and then let's come up with the best one possible and execute on that option.
Yeah.
Let's put it into
Yeah.
place.
I mean, something's got to be done. We can't rely on just when it's going to rain. I'm a big weather nerd. I follow it. I know we've been in a La Nina pattern. We're going to El Nino, and there's potential, and that can help be very beneficial in rainfall. But when we get in these other multi-year droughts in these situations, and it progressively gets worse, you got I don't think so much last year before in our neighborhood, wells going dry, and so people are having to drill deeper.
You're right.
In the neighborhood. I mean, it's so much strain on here. So it is a big issue, and no action is not a
Right.
a viable solution.
And it's not just happening here, right? You look
Yeah.
at Lake Mead.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Corpus, you got
Yeah.
it's all over.
but Lake Mead is also man-made.
Yep.
The Hoover Dam.
Yep.
Very cool. But the area around there is growing. It draws more water,
Yep.
and there is no other place to get that water from.
Yep.
And to me, it's like, well, what do we think is going to happen?
Yep.
This is not.
It's crazy because growing up, we always, California, we always felt all the issues in California, and the water is a big issue out there forever. And multiple reasons people why and think and whatever. That's never going to be an issue here until it is.
Yeah. Until it is. This is another comment that people get tilted around, but it's basic science. The water cycle,
Mhm.
right? There's never any more or any less water on the face of the earth.
Right.
It's an infrastructure of the water, I believe, that is the problem. It's an infrastructure issue. Does that make sense?
Expound on that.
So again, just the basic tenet that there's no less or
Correct.
more
There's only
water.
there's a finite amount of water on Earth.
No, there's a finite amount of oil on
Yeah.
Earth. If you want to translate it to another commodity, oil takes a very long time to make, right? Fossil fuels, like
Yep.
break down and all this stuff and all of the things in the earth that are getting crushed and forming the soil. Right?
Yep.
And we draw it and it comes out, and that is finite. Water is closed loop. Water is closed loop.
Yeah.
So that's just basic. That's a basic science thing that we all learn in like the 4th grade. We use it. It goes into the creek, or it goes into the
evaporates,
ground
goes
with
back,
a
yeah.
septic, and so it's always cycling, right? The question is, where is it at in that cycle? And is it where we need it to be? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that it's an infrastructure issue at the very core of the problem. The core issue is an infrastructure issue.
Okay.
Hence the reason we have reservoirs.
Yep.
Right.
Because we want to keep it trapped, keep it in this state.
Correct.
Yep.
Right. And so, which is great. That's why we made them.
Yep.
But we haven't done anything with the infrastructure since a long time ago.
Yep. It is wild to think about that.
It's really hard to understand that because there's a lot of things that you read on Facebook that we're running out of water. And yes, I mean, yes, we are, but because there has not been any more infrastructure in place.
Yep.
Running out of water, like, what is that? No, like I said, I mean, water is closed loop.
Sure. Yeah. If we can get it. You got to do something about it.
You can get the water. Yeah. I mean, you know, and you look at all these cities that are built in deserts. How are they built in a desert?
Yeah.
Because they have water infrastructure that's coming from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People don't, that's a hard thing to acknowledge.
Yeah.
I'm a solutions-driven individual, though.
Do you think we could build a big enough reservoir with the property values out here?
Well, I mean, we just passed Prop A. That was $20 million that we used for conservation easements. I would suspect that with $20 million, you could buy.
Because even the size of Bernie Lake, I mean, how big is Bernie Lake? Do you know roughly?
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we passed Prop A, $20 million, which I am a supporter of. I'm not necessarily supportive of the way that Prop A was executed, though. Does that make sense? Like, I think we could have used that $20 million for more strategic purchases of land to help conserve some of the landscape and some of the beauty and stuff, and then also for reservoir.
Sure.
But, you know, I wasn't able to make those decisions. So some of that land is just bought up in a conservation easement to where the people still live there. And I think that makes sense to an extent, but is it the best use for the community as a whole?
Yeah. Depends on who you ask.
Yeah. I mean, you ask the guy that has the conservation easement, they're happy.
Yeah.
But the rest of the community, what did we get out of that? I mean, are we solving a water issue with that? Or could we have solved a water issue with that?
Right.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Right. So to your question, can we afford it? Yes. I mean, we willingly voted on a bond for $20 million for conservation. So that's my spiel on water.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of, some of it's a little unpopular. But again, the reason it would be unpopular is because it's a double-edged sword. Right?
Yeah.
You solve the water problem.
You're going to get more growth.
You get more growth.
Which causes more water issues.
Right. But issues are opportunities.
Sure.
Right? Issues are opportunities. Yeah. I mean, that's a very philosophical kind of debate, right? Like, we look at 3.5% growth, annualized compounded since 1990. If we have it at 0, that means it'll be gone. I mean, nothing.
Yep.
Right. So that's the alternative. The alternative is that we go to 0 and there is nothing in the future at all. And maybe some people are supportive of that. I'm not. I have children. So, and I would love to have grandchildren one day. So, I mean,
sure.
The idea that, we should just stop altogether. I mean, I'm a living example of my disagreement with that philosophy.
Yep.
After all, I have kids. So these things are very, very linear. Like I think about it like, well, what do I do? How do I live my life? But it's it's weird though because people don't think like that. You know, they don't look at the alternatives of what's the alternative of zero. What's the alternative of 3.5 if it's zero? But yeah, we can go to a lot of different like ghost towns. Yeah, they don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll eventually outage yourself and go, but yeah.
Right. I love human ingenuity. I'm an optimist. I was just born like that. You know,
Yeah.
I think about things as problems to be solved, not problems to give up.
Yep.
You know, and not only do I say that, but I've lived that after what I've told you. And you know, I am excited about the future.
Sure.
I'm very excited about the future.
Yeah.
You know, and so
it's a great community. It's a great area. It's a great state, and
yeah,
the future's very bright here. And
yeah,
we got to preserve that and make sure. And by preserve, it's not necessarily hinder growth, but strategically manage and plan.
Strategically manage. And again, like the only I say like a lot. I got to really work on that. I think it has. But it's that change is inevitable. Again, another basic tenet of life.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. So, what's another topic? So we have water. That's an important.
You tell me what's another big one for you? That's
emergency services.
Okay.
Can we do that real quick?
Sure.
So emergency service. So we have Bernie Fire Department paid. That's city.
Yep.
City of Fair Oaks contracts out. I believe it's Leon Springs ESD, which may be switching or may have already switched to the one off of 3351, the Bear County ESD there. I'm not sure. And then the rest of the fire is volunteer.
All volunteer. Yeah.
Right, which I'm huge into volunteerism. It goes in line. It kind of aligns with the limited government involvement.
Yep.
Now, with that said, when you again, it just all kind of boils down to growth, right? When you have the growth that we've had, the 3.5% or 3 times, however you want to look at it, sometimes volunteerism doesn't always work.
Mm-hmm.
People are busy. They have other things on their mind. They rather just subsidize it through taxes.
Yep.
Right. I think there's some areas of the county that likely would need to have full-time or become emergency service district area potentially in the future.
Yeah.
But also to that same thing, like Sisterdale, Waring, those areas, I think probably do, and they're not in my precinct, but I should still know about it because I'm running for commissioner in the county.
Sure.
Probably thrive off of volunteerism still and are far away from needing to be managed through governance.
Yeah. I mean, way less populated and
way less populated.
Yep.
So first line of business around emergency services would be to have a county-wide fire protection plan study.
Okay.
So you look at the whole county in the aggregate, and you pinpoint the hot spots. This is where a lot of population is growing. Take Bergheim, for example,
sure,
which is in Precinct 2. There's a lot of growth around there. Is the volunteerism working? Is it going to continue to work? I can tell you that station in Bergheim is quasi-funded by the county today. It is not 100% volunteer anymore. I think that can limp us along. What do we need to do long term? Do we want to have that county ran, which I think is a good option if you can legally do that with county employees, to have this department 24/7 with the resources that it needs? That would be great. Another option is to have an ESD, which is a service area that department services, and there's a tax levied on the individuals that live in that service area. kind of goes against my ethos of limited government. But those are two, I think, potentially viable options, right? It's county ran, not county wide.
Yeah.
The county would designate this service area,
certain particular high risk areas
that department is in charge of, and it's funded full time. Same thing with Tapatio, potentially in Comfort. And again, those are just three areas that I think need to be looked at, and we need to come up with a solution there to be able to provide the essential services that the residents are paying for in tax dollars or not through volunteerism.
Yeah. Is there studies done on those that we know, like how far behind are they lacked on resources? Is it just a pure mechanism of the individuals being able to respond because it's a volunteer, right, on their free time? And
I don't know
how much of a concern is that to really bring into the area, or need, in your perspective, outside of just, hey, we're getting bigger, right, and so we got to plan ahead?
So it's one of those things that could be written in blood. Does that make sense? So in other words, if there's a huge fire or a huge structure fire, and there have been homes that have burnt down.
Yeah.
Do we want to wait for that to happen?
Right.
Or should we be proactive and trying to prevent that from happening the best way we can?
Sure.
Right. I think that those are some of the things that you have to think about. And
is
a growing
as fire. Is that EMS too, and all those services, or are those separate?
Those are separate right now, but yes, the EMS has a substation in Berkheim, and that is a county. I believe it's countywide ran the EMS services. Likely, you would have to continue to grow that as we continue to grow in population.
Sure.
But fire, I think, is the predominant opportunity to look at when we're talking about the growth rates that we're experiencing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It should be on the radar.
Yeah.
And there has been some good done, again, with being able to get some funding to Comfort from the county and some funding to Berkheim. But again, I don't know. That's probably not a long-term solution.
That makes sense.
And it's done differently. So Comfort has county employees, I believe, and Berkheim has funds.
So you think funding would be better, or counter employees?
I think, to be fair to taxpayers, that it would be also managed by the county itself, and to have county employees manage those tax dollars and how they're spent.
That makes sense.
Rather than just giving a volunteer station money.
Let them
right
dictate themselves on how they want to manage it.
And then you have some type of authority over those departments. That's just from my business standpoint. That's just kind of how I would look at it from that part of my mind.
Yeah. What else? What other topics? What other hot items? I don't have any on here.
You know?
No, I didn't put any items. I want to hear from you on what are those hot topics for you.
Transportation. Obviously, and that is another. No.
Okay, just
roadways,
just
mobility.
Okay,
yeah, mobility. But that's a tough one. I mean, a very, very difficult one. You probably remember the Gateway study, which is like totally taboo to talk about.
I'm not familiar with it.
It's like a loop.
Oh, around Bernie.
Yeah,
I think conceptually, as an idea, that would be fantastic. Or at least some type of connection from 46.
Right. No, I mean, it's and so this is one of those things that likely comes out of pain there's a
Yeah.
certain pain point that people are like, okay, I can see it. Like, there's
Yeah.
something that's got to be done here.
Yeah.
And in certain areas of the county, that pain is a lot more severe than it is in other parts of the county. Right. So the whole loop idea, you can plan for that and you can think about what that would look like. But I think it's a lot for residents to bite off on. It's too much.
For right now, yeah. I mean,
it's
100%.
it's too much. And the way that was presented, not probably good. I wouldn't want it. It's just that's way far. Planning about it, thinking about it, that's a good strategy. But execution on that plan right now today, I don't think you need to go there.
Sure.
It's like the water thing, right? Going back to desal water, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Let's think about it. That takes a lot more work with other counties and certainly at the state level, right? And probably at one point, God willing, that opportunity comes rather than the opportunity than getting, killing each other in war or something.
Yeah.
But what do we need to do today? What do we need to look at today to ease? And it's not just around mobility, right? Like I said, I mean, it's around management and the corralling of growth.
Mm.
So if you take, for instance, 46 to I-10, and if you were to build that section, that way you are not only easing traffic flow, and you could do it one of two ways, right? You could have it to where that part of that roadway was in a conservation easement to where there's nothing that could be built there.
Mm.
Expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive. But if that's what the residents want, then I think that should be an option. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But another option is that you corral the development in that area. Right? So instead of going all throughout the county and all the different roads, you entice that particular piece of area.
It's going to be way busier, but it's going to be concentrated in one area.
Correct. Rather than
all
sprawling.
over. It's busy all over.
Right. All of these things are very. I'm talking about. I'm really putting it all out there, to be honest with you. I mean,
all the options.
Hey, I don't know if this is the proper solution or not, right? But again, if you did the option A to where you had that road and all of the property along that road was in a conservation easement, nothing could be built there.
Sure.
In theory. And you also solve the mobility issue.
Mm.
Again, very expensive.
Yeah.
But I would want to provide that option. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. The brass tacks of it is that I think that if we don't do something in this conversation, you have to really play it all through and understand what it is and where it is that I'm going with all of this. But at the end of the day, the state will not, in my opinion, they're not going to care. They'll just build a road wherever they want to build a road.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And
you're right. I mean, they got the funds and resources, and they're going to come in and just
right
domain it and go from there.
Right. Yeah, and they're not stealing land, okay? I mean,
yeah,
they're buying it. But
yeah,
at any rate, do we want the state to do that, or would we rather come up with solutions together on our traffic flow problems? In my mind, those are the options. We do nothing, and the state comes in, and they're going to, okay, listen, we'll take 46 for you. We're going to build a flyover over I-10, connect the other side of 46, because I've heard about 46 becoming the next 1604 since I was in a car seat. All right?
Yeah.
And you look, and it's happened in Houston with 99.
Mm-hmm.
And 99 literally flies over Old Town, Katy, their little Main Street thing right there. I've been on it. you can look down and you can see the little town there.
Sure.
It's not really even a town anymore. I mean, it's just urbanized completely.
Mm-hmm.
99 I mean, all farmland. It is the outer loop of Houston. Houston has 610, the Beltway, and now 99.
Yep.
And what do they say? History rhymes.
Yeah.
And I see a rhyme here.
Doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes.
Yes. And there's a rhyme, I think, happening here. And if I was to talk to the state about it, which I haven't, but if I would assume that that's exactly the way they think about it, 46. That this is the third loop of San Antonio. Right? So you have 410, 1604, 46.
Yep.
Right?
I never thought of it that way, but it makes sense. I mean, it's cut
Well,
across all the northern towns across that's suburbs or whatever you want to call it, right outside of San Antonio. So
empathy is the ability to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. And if I were to put myself in the people's shoes that are in Austin, and if I was looking at things like that, that's how I would feel about it, I think.
mm-hmm.
But I don't know that to be certain, but it makes sense. And so, again, do we want that option, or do we want to work towards a solution that keeps us from being like a Katy or from being like a New Braunfels
yeah,
or a Bulverde? How can we protect what it is that we have and keep the unique
small town.
characteristics while allowing the growth
Yeah,
to
mobility.
happen? How do we manage that and work together across different governing bodies for everybody's best interest?
Mm.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but you have to understand too, like I just told you, empathy, the ability to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. I understand and I empathize. One of the big issues, right, too, is that there's generational interests. Right? So the interest for a certain age demographic is not the same interest as for my age demographic or for your age demographic or for ours age demographic.
Yeah.
Keep it the way that it is until I leave or die, and this other demographic will deal with it when they need to deal with it. There's some reality to that, right? And so how do we work together to be like, well, we don't want to just wait and do nothing, because if we do that, we're going to have issues or opportunities that aren't going to be in line with keeping Kendall County a special place.
Yeah.
It's going to become just like Bear County. You won't be able to tell the difference. And that's already happening.
It's already happening.
It's already happening. And so how do we get ahead of that? How do we be proactive and have solutions? Because I think we've relied on the solution of doing nothing too long.
Yep. I mean, you got a strong argument.
It's not, yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've gotten to that point of understanding the reality and giving up the idea that nothing is going to change.
Yep.
Which I don't even know why I ever had that thought. To be honest with you, I don't even know if I did ever have that thought, because it's never played out in my life to where things don't change.
They do change, but who changes them?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they do change. So that's transportation. I think it goes hand in hand with the development piece. The county does have very stringent development rules, which I think are good, to be able to make it a little bit more challenging to do what it is that you want to do. And I think I'm supportive of making it challenge, of throttling it as much as possible. But the idea, again, that I'm going to go in and just tell people that you absolutely cannot do this, or like, that's just
too much.
Yeah, it's too much. I mean, again, we find ourselves in that slippery slope. That does not become sustainable, right? Again, if you do that, you go to 0% growth. And if you don't do that, you go to 10% growth. So if we can maintain and manage properly the 3.5%, how do we do that?
Spot.
How do we do that best going forward?
Where can people find out more about you?
VoteJCTaylor.com.
VoteJCTaylor.com.
Or call me. You know, I have all my phone. I have my.
That can be dangerous.
No. Look, I have my phone number on all of my marketing material, and I think I've had like 3 or 4 people call me.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
surprisingly low. Yeah.
It's very low.
Hopefully it changes. Hopefully we get more people involved in local politics. And
you know, I'm totally open, and that's the thing. I'm not locked into any one. But the only thing that I ask is that we have to have practical solutions, right? I mean, practical solution. Building a fence around Kendall County is not a practical solution.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
No.
Right. So what are the practical solutions? Let's talk about it. All of my ideas may not be the best ideas.
Sure.
But what are some other ideas that we can go forward with?
Let's put them on the table and discuss them and figure it out.
Yeah. An action plan.
Yep.
It's an action plan. So.
Yep.
Anyway.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks,
Appreciate you coming.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun.